Summit. We encourage all our viewers to share the questions for the speakers in the comments and the events chat box. And we are glad to have around 150 plus attendees at the summit. You can also share your perspective on the day's proceedings through your social media accounts. Don't forget to use the hashtag TV Brandfest 2021 in your post and tag our official handles. We can be found at ITV News with a Z on Twitter and Facebook and IndianTelevision.com on Instagram and LinkedIn. None of this would have been possible without the tremendous support of our co-powered by partner, Disney Star TV Network. This event is produced and executed by ITV 2.0 Productions. Now, without much further ado, we start with our session for the day on content, fiction, and non-fiction. And for this session, I would like to welcome our distinguished set of panelists, Mr. Vijay Kaul, Head of Marketing, Yamaha Motor India Private Limited, Mr. Bidyut Nath, Head of Brand Marketing, Shyam Steel India, Ms. Prachi Mohapatra, Marketing Head, OTC, Emerging Markets, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Mr. Rajiv Dubey, Head of Media, Dabur. And the session will be moderated by none other than Mr. Anil Vanwari, Founder, Editor-in-Chief, and CEO, IndianTelevision.com Group. I welcome you all and over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. You did it immaculately as ever. Thank you, Dinal. And let's get on with the conversation. There's no conversation, there's going to be no tom-tomming what Indian television does. I think people are familiar. So let me begin by asking a very basic question. Why do brands need GCs? Who's going to take it up? Why general entertainment channel? Why fiction? Why non-fiction? Why do you need it? I mean, you can easily get on to various niches and get your message seen and heard. Who's going to take it up?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
Why do you have ratings?
Okay.
Right. If you were to just go to niche channels and get the numbers, see what happens is that there's a critical mass you want to reach, right? For example, I'll go with specific state, like I'll go with southern state like Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, where program ratings are still in the range of 15, 16, right? For Andhra Pradesh, the top programs, and like good old Doordarshan days. So you get ratings like good old Doordarshan days in these markets, on these GCs which are there. Coming back to the Hindi belt, you still have programs which do about 3 or 4 ratings on Star Plus today. The rating which you will get if you buy a very high impact cricket match. And look at the cost at which the cricket matches are sold, and versus the cost at which you buy a GC. So one is cost part. Second is high reach number which you get. And if you want to reach to masses, for example, for businesses like ours, where you want to reach out to masses repeatedly, month after month, days after days, this is the best way to go. What happens with the niche channel is that you tend to get lost. You're not sure how the buying has been. Those channels, those programs don't perform very consistently. So one is high reach is one reason. Second is consistency of the viewership numbers which you get in the GC. That's why I'm a poster boy of GC channels. I continue to buy GC channels in a big way for my brands, and will continue to do so because that's the business I'm in.
Yeah. So I'm going to go on. I'm going to leave the lady for the last. Yeah, but I'm going to go on to Vijay. Vijay, yes, for the last, because you'll come up with the most insights. No offense meant to Rajiv and to Vijay.
Yeah.
So you absorb whatever they're saying, and you can say what they're not saying.
Yeah, Anil, first, why we need GECs and why we don't need GECs. First, if you see last year, GECs, like they had almost 50% of genre share in weekly viewing minutes as far as the BARC yearbook 2020 is concerned. So you can't miss GECs. As Rajiv rightly said, that when you want to go for masses, GEC have to be in your plans. Well, I'll give a perspective from the automobile industry. In automobile industry, it definitely matters basis your brand objectives, basis on the product you're looking forward. It's like catering to male audience versus unisex audience. So if you're targeting unisex audience, especially in the case of scooters, you have to go for GECs. You have to go for fiction. Well, for male audience, you can definitely try. You can go for fiction as well. There are lots of fiction programs which have delivered well as far as creating impact is concerned and targeting the male audience is concerned. So definitely GCs, all advertisers need in their media plans, whether it is FMCG, auto, or any other category. So considering the length and breadth of India, it is a must for media plan.
Fantastic. Now, Prachi, over to you for your wise words.
Thank you so much, Anil, and thank you for holding it up till the end. So I'm going to put my thoughts together on brands I have worked with earlier also and the current ones that I am working with. Since I've just changed industry, I see a lot of changes that I've experienced in my previous role with a high decibel fashion brand as well. So going in lines with what my peers said just about GCs being used. I have noticed that, of course, when you're trying to build a brand for a longer period of time, GCs work very well. In fact, for tactical campaigns also, you have a high decibel program that you are chasing. You reach a number, you get in, you get out. I mean, these are numbers which we have seen. In fact, data drives most of our decisions on it when we are on a tactical, limited, time-bound tactical campaigns, and we are in and out, and it really helped us. In fact, it helped us in sustainability of our brand. However, I don't discount the lifestyle channels as well. What it helped me do a lot over a period of time, it really builds a very different image if you're trying to change a brand imagery. For example, for the fashion brand that I was working with, I definitely moved my brand image from a certain set of mass individual to a certain set of individual that I was wanting to chase. So it did help me. In the OTC segment that I am currently working on, and I'm not going to limit my knowledge only to India market since my market at this point of time goes out of India as well. For GCs, we have seen a huge traction in the pharma as well as OTC industry as well. And in fact, it's not only me, it's most of my competition brands who are also chasing these platforms. And why are they chasing it? Because these are trust builders. These are spaces wherein you have an inherent trust with these channels. So hence it goes a long way to build a trust also and to reach the right kind of consumer. So I'm straddling my experience between FMCG, between fashion, and between the OTC segment.
So that is the fashion and all was in your earlier stints. Now, as far as OTC products are concerned, you also need to get into the language side. You also need to get into specific vertical side. There may be something which is OTC driven for the woman. So would you go GC or would you go for a GC or would you go for another channel which is targeted of a fashion channel, for instance?
The two things drives it, Anil. First of all, money. Paisa kitna hai definitely is a tall ask on table, and that's definitely is your decision builder. And I'm sure Rajiv and Vijay also have the same kind of issues with them on table. However, apart from the money part, what is it that we're chasing when we, as you rightly put down, if I'm targeting a female immunity builder, then definitely I'm going forward to target the mass segment GC as well. But at the same time, I'm a fan of lifestyle channels. And again, as I said, the segments is niche. You don't see a lot of output, but it's a warm boil. And I definitely have a huge respect for these channels as well. And we're going to talk about, I'm sure, when we come to the actual point, we're going to talk a lot on those point of fiction, non-fiction. So I'm going to hold my points on those.
Sure. So it's all about content now. I see companies like Red Bull, they're building content themselves and they're putting it on television, they're putting it out on digital. So what are your views on building content yourself and putting it out rather than, just depending on channels and their programming heads? What are your views on that, on building content yourself? All of you, for instance, you could not just partnering with MTV Roadies or one of the brands, but creating content yourself and then putting it out with creative people, with production. What are your views on that side? Because that gives you a lot more control over the messaging.
Yeah, go ahead, Prachi. Go ahead.
Rajiv, seniority, jao. Ab senior ho. Jao.
So, I think, first of all, what I would like to say is that we're not in business of creating content. Okay, that's not our core business, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is somebody else's business, and is much cheaper and easier to latch onto something which is already there, in front of you, and something which is proven, rather than trying to be James Cameron and create a Titanic or a Avatar kind of a content. It doesn't work. My forte is to sell my products, and that's what I would continue to do like that. That's first part, which is like capability set. That's the capability is one issue. Second is the cost at which if you were to go to a channel and put that content on yourself, it comes at a huge cost. It doesn't come cheap, and then whether you put it on a smaller channel or a bigger channel, irrespective, there's certain basic cost which is there, plus the energy which goes behind it and expertise which goes behind it. And I mean, you lose a lot of energy in doing things which may or may not work for you, which you don't know how this whole thing will pan out. So I'm of the opinion that I would rather latch onto something which is already there, or go with a property which is already there, and where I can integrate my brands in a better way and leverage with whatever is there in front of you, rather than creating something on your own and trying to be James Cameron.
I get it. So you prefer to concentrate on your core competency, but brands like Red Bull actually have built a Red Bull media house, and other companies also. Pepsi creates its own content. MTV creates its own. So let's move on to Vijay and ask Vijay, and then finally Prachi again.
Yeah, Anil, it is who bells the cat first, because there are lots on stake. We know how a bigger hole they create in your pockets, right? So creating a content is not an easy task. As Rajiv said, that it consumes lots of energy and resources. But having said that, there are brands who are trying on it, and especially in category like automobiles, it really works well, because you can have your curated message delivered to the audience. For example, we have examples of MTV Roadies had an association with one of our competitors, right? And when it comes to Yamaha, we had lots of opportunities in creating content. We had a content piece with one of the India's famous rappers, Badshah. We created our brand Razor, which is a motorcycle for young boys. So for that, we created a content piece with him called Razor Mera Swag. So we had a series of songs which were sung by Badshah, and nicely we had embedded the message through it, and it was a subtle product integration. So I'll say for automobiles, yes, it works, but you need to be sure with your messaging and what kind of time and energies plus the money you're going to put into it.
I know, but was the content engine driven by y'all, or y'all partnered with somebody on that?
No, it was driven by us, curated by Sony Music.
Okay, so Sony Music, and then the production people were separate. Everyone was
definitely.
They hired everyone. Yeah. But you had a very strong input.
Yes.
Very strong input. You all drove the input.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So now, Prachi, over to you.
So branded content or content partnership is something that I firsthand have not experienced huge success on television as a platform. I would rather give it to the digital platforms or the OTT specifically, where we see a lot of success. I mean, case in point, I think MTV Core Studio, for example, was a fantastic example of how it started off. And in fact, Roadies was one of the example. But when you see branded content, you really have to have the might to make it big. And as Rajiv put it, do you want to do it over a period? And it's like building a platform together. I mean, do you want to start it? There is a time period attached to it. You have to make it successful, or else it becomes, it just does not become worth your time, energy, and the money that you are spending on it. Yes, for platforms outside television, I am all for branded content. I think it creates a lot of excitement. It creates a lot of conversation with the right kind of TG. And that's why influencer associations also happen. That's why paid partnerships also happen. And that's why a product like TVF Tiago tripling really moves ahead. And that's precisely why I think it's a curated space which is meant for your right precision segmentation conversation. For a space like television, I'll still stay away from it. And I would likely, if it is going to happen, I would likely to see pleasantly surprised if somebody tries it on a small scale in television and still gets a success.
So I'm going to just come in here. Look at Kumaramangala Billa's group. He set up Applause, which is as a diversification. But I'm sure, subtly, if you look at the stories, there would be messaging which would enhance the brands of the Kumaramangala Billa group. Some way or the other, if you look at the entire programming that's being put out. Right now, he's focusing on OTT, but I expect and it's also Profit Center, which Sameer Nair is building. So in India, we have a case in point where we have this. So I'm going to ask Vijay this. You all will not set up a content engine in-house, will you all? Or will you all look at that? Or have creative people who will work on having the content engine in-house?
Yeah, for us, we'll definitely look for creative people to work upon this, not an in-house content, because the scale is not that big. I mean, and the usage is frequent. So we'll definitely look for outsourcing it.
Okay, so we've let that past us that Prachi thinks, let's leave it to the specialist. Rajiv thinks, let's leave it to the specialist. Vijay thinks, let's leave it to the specialist, but we'll get involved wherever we can, where it's easy pickings. Correct me if I'm wrong, Vijay. Especially music videos, etc., is where you'll get involved. And, you'll be really putting your skin behind it rather than putting lots of money behind it. Correct me. Vijay, am I right in my thought process that I've set out? Have I got disconnected? Can anybody?
Anil, sorry, I lost you in between. I think I have network issue. Could you just repeat that, please?
So basically, all of you affirmed that you all would not like to go ahead in driving a content story in-house. You will, Vijay, have I lost you again? I think I'm losing Vijay again. Rajiv, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Vijay is gone and Prachi is gone.
So yeah. So let me answer it on their behalf. Let me take liberty to say that companies like ours or probably all other companies also. I think this is not a core business for us, right? Creating content is not a core
but neither was it for Red Bull. But they built a media house which is today doing hundreds of millions of dollars of business.
So what is probably happening for brands like Red Bull is that they're creating a lot of content for digital medium primarily, which is what they're trying to do right now, which is what we also do. We create a lot of content for digital media, but doing the same thing for TV and translating the same thing for TV, that's something which always will remain a challenge, because the platform becomes the issue. And like, suppose if you were to create a content which we want to put it on TV, then the cost element becomes very, very different, for putting something on TV.
Yeah, but look at the impact they had. They had the astronaut jump from space. That piece of content made waves all over the world.
They had basically sponsored it, right?
No, they actually built it. Red Bull Media was behind it.
Yeah,
it was their initiative. So I'm saying the impact it created worldwide, that it jumped from such a height, and that clearly associated with the brand. For instance, Gillette does the shaving that it does. It does that entire mass saving. Thousands of people are shaved on one day. They get a shave. They take a book of ground. So that's not just an activation. It's an association.
Yeah. So I was just coming to that. So isn't it an activation idea? Because like getting say a million people to shave in a day. So we also create such kind of events like for Hajmola, Pudina, etc. And we create the Guinness World record in a day. But these are limited only to activation. I mean, one doesn't go to say a mass medium and do a tom-tomming about it. When there's just kind of does a PR around it and let it go wild. However, like just coming to that example where this guy jumped from went in a rocket
out of orbit, and he went into a very high orbit.
Jumped from the orbit, So that was something that again, that idea would have come from say somebody, and they would have latched onto it and would have sponsored it in some way. I don't know whether they kind of started off this whole thing on their own and said that let me get a guy who will go to space and will jump from there, or say.
No, I met Fritz. He's the guy who did the jump. I met him at MIPCOM in Cannes, and
right.
My understanding is it was driven by Red Bull Media House. My understanding. I may be wrong. We can research it. At least that's what they said.
Yeah.
So and they filmed it and they showed it live and they showcased it live all over on YouTube, online, on some television channels also. Because it became
so that way Red Bull has done lots of things. So you're talking about this is another one which I saw, that the guy jumps from the plane and into the net, which is like hanging between two hills, right?
Yeah.
So those kind of things also they've done. So they've done extreme sports kind of thing, which is basically
which is very akin to the brand, that you need energy to execute stuff.
Very akin to the brand. And so I mean, it works for them. It may not work for every brand, and again, it'll come to the point where how far are you willing to go to get a mileage, and along with these two things which you're talking about, there's like 95% will be free publicity and 5% will be paid publicity.
Sure.
If your content can drive this kind of a benefit, then yes, I'm in for it. But for a brand which is very, very FMCG kind of a brand, it's very difficult to get such a great idea. I mean, again, it'll come to the ideation part, whether the idea was great or not, and judging whether this will work or not,
Sure.
if right. So it boils down to that. So let's go to that question which you're going to ask, Vijay.
Fantastic. No, I've done my questions around this. Now let's move on to what are the challenges you'll face while going on to GECs? What are the challenges each of you'll face? Then we'll get into fiction, non-fiction. Then we'll get into other aspects of it. When you'll want to do a GEC, driven by a GEC as the front prong for your campaign, and what products will you use it for? Is it for existing products? Is it for brand extensions? Is it for new launches? And what would you do around that time? So, giving some cases. Not Prachi begin. Prachi, you're on the spot.
Sure. Absolutely. Happy to be. So, see, as you rightly put in that employment of GC, why does it happen and where do we actually look at it from? As I put, I mean, it's a huge trust builder. It's a huge reach. Rajiv put out the numbers there, and these are not definitely, these are numbers we all chase. I mean, these are spaces I would actually look at and say that, okay, these are spaces where I would want to take my mature brand. Do I want to put my new brand out there? Absolutely. I mean, if it is a brand extension, it just takes away the mother brands, umbrella brands points and actually extends it very, very strongly. A new brand, I definitely put a lot of my faith on pre-buzz on a new brand. I mean, my test marketing numbers would definitely show me the path here. I might not want to take a new brand straight away on GC. I definitely want to put it on a space wherein it has garnered enough buzz for me, and then maybe take it up to the GC level. Launching a new brand directly on GC is akin to spending a lot of your budget, and that takes a lot of might. If it is not a brand which is going to have that kind of numbers backing it, I'm not ready to put my money directly on GC. So I would definitely put my line extensions, my mature brands out there. My new brands definitely would require, and from a OTC space, also from the industry that we work on, I think a lot of our trust builders come from mature brands. So that's where I would like to put my money on. But new brands, definitely not. That's not a space I enter into.
Okay, Vijay?
Yeah, I'll kind of second Prachi when she said that more mature brands, wherein you expect lots of sales volumes from those numbers, and your footprint is spread across the country, definitely will take GECs. For us, the choice is simple. As I said, male versus unisex. If it is for masses, if it's a commuter segment, definitely will take GECs. When your sales targets are limited, when you're targeting a niche audience, say suppose it is male 18 to 24 and your sales targets are not so huge. So GCs are definitely a no-no for us. As far as problems, the challenges what we face while taking the GCs on board is the biggest is the kind of money we have to splurge on these channels. And now we have been kind of spoiled for the choice. There is number 1 channel, number 2 channel, number 3 channel, too much on platform and on platter to take into consideration. And with that, there is huge competition from regionals. As I heard Rajiv was talking about South, right? So it's entirely a different country together, wherein you have so many 4 states vying for their own share. You have the channels like Sun, you have Star Vijay. So it's becomes difficult to plan for us.
Yeah, so coming back, Rajiv, your answer to this, and then I'll go on to the next question, which has come from what Vijay said only.
Yeah, so for me, it makes sense to be there with all brands actually, and barring just a very few brands which are very, very specific. Like if I have a men's hair removing cream, for example, I would not like to go for GC. Otherwise, for all my brands are very, very massive brands, and which are distributed across more than 100,000 outlets in the country. So it becomes very massive for me, and I would like to go for GC. To answer about whether I would like to go with the new brands or not, yes, of course. And for what I do for new brands also is that I go and take big ticket sponsorship, so that the brand becomes visible across the country as soon as possible, so that it can go to as many households as possible. With respect to difficulty in GC, yes, the barriers are the costs the biggest area. The cost is the biggest barrier for getting into GC. It's very, very expensive, and it's becoming more and more expensive as we go. And the monies get concentrated in fewer channels, because only few channels do very well, and other channels are like, they all behave like niche. If you just take out 1 or 2 channels on the top, so you have to cut a good deal with these channels, and we'll just start Z and maybe Sony.
Okay. So actually, I lost you for a second over there, but I heard that you said you have to, you'll take a Star, Z, and Sony on a Hindi platter. Can you all hear me?
Yep, you can.
Yeah, but I can't hear.
And can you hear me?
Yeah, because I lost you for a few seconds.
Again, just limited to 2 or 3 networks where you have to go, and these networks are very ambitious in terms of their own numbers, and the rates have been on a rise as we've seen in last 1 year at least. So that's it from me. I mean, the cost is a big barrier. That's what I would say about this.
Okay, so he said he goes for 3 channels in the GEC pecking order. Rajiv said, what about you all two? What would you all go for? Would you all go for 3 GECs? And you go by the rule of 3 across all languages, as depending on where which market you're really concentrating on more, whether it's a South plus Hindi belt.
I said 3 networks.
3 networks.
3 networks dominate across all markets. That's what I said.
Okay.
The top 3, top 3 networks in the country, they dominate all the markets actually for GCs.
So that's your Star, Z, and Sony is what.
So Star, Z, and Colors network, basically they dominate across all the markets when it comes to GC.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, true that. If you kind of consider these 3 networks, I mean, I think you're done.
Same goes for India market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then would you go for just the mainline channel, or would you go for the second line and TV as well as the other?
Of course, you do go for others as well. And so what happens is that there's a set of GC channels which are from these 3 networks, and the second line of channels, which are, say, the FTA channels, they are also from the same networks. So ultimately, you kind of concentrate on these 3 across all markets. Then of course there are lifestyle channels and other movie channels, etc., which again are from the same network. Fortunately, unfortunately. But,
so when does Sony come into play?
So Sony is also one of the top. It's not top 3.
Is it 3 or 4?
Yeah, it's top 3 or 4.
But for us, Sony, if you have to take fiction into consideration, the destination is Sony.
Okay.
Yeah, with all the programs like KBC, like Indian Idol and all that.
So non-fiction, basically.
Yeah, non-fiction. When you have to take non-fiction, Sony is the destination for all of us.
And is it the same for Prachi, or Prachi is differing?
I mean, no, the tentpole events are all with Sony for sure, and I mean these are the ones that you hinge on to create a loudest noise in the minimum space of time. So that's definitely you're hinging on Sony on such umbrella or tentpole events for sure. And adding to what you're saying, apart from these 3 channels, yes, when localization is on the agenda, so for example, South, which is absolutely another country by itself, you definitely want a few of those entertainment channels, local entertainment channels in your media plan.
Okay. Now coming back again, Rajiv seems to have a propensity towards non-fiction, a lot of non-fiction and sponsored events and stuff like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. You also do some fiction, but fiction is it that high as compared to non-fiction for you?
Yeah, fiction is more than non-fiction for us. But so like when I talked about the new product launches and something which needs a good visibility. So what happens is the non-fiction ones get promoted much more than the fiction ones. So you can ride on the promotion, you can ride on the integrations, and so that's what non-fiction does for us, and it works very well. Like for example, so everyone's talking about Sony. For example, Sony is a network which thrives in the non-fiction programming, which is KBC and Indian Idol and the Kapil Sharma show, etc. And it offers a very, very unique audience to people. So that way Sony becomes very, very unique network to be on. their fictions don't do as well as their non-fictions do. So, and on other networks, also, I mean, there are non-fiction programs like Big Boss, I would call, say, non-fiction, for example. So that's one program which we buy across markets, and we've been buying it across years. That has seen a very good success. You get very good brand recall, you get very good in-show placement, very good integrations. And it works well for a brand which is just a new brand and you want to establish that brand. So we use it primarily for new brands and brands where we want to drive some new communication. So for us, I mean, non-fiction is important, but still fiction takes a larger piece of the pie. But it's pretty important for us.
And how do you select the fiction programs, Rajiv?
Fiction is
it just ratings, or is it also the kind of content and the messaging that's being put out by the program?
The first protocol is ratings, right? So
okay.
First is always ratings. You look at the ratings and then you decide whether you want to be in this program. And then you look at the duplication across the programs and across the channels. And so that happens. So you try to minimize your duplication, and as you go along, you try to look at a program which is most optimal for you in terms of cost and in terms of, and should be lowest in terms of duplication.
So you don't ever reject a program because it doesn't meet the values, despite it rating highly, that the brands possess, or the brands give out the values that they have.
Give an example of this.
Let's say you have a thing. I won't give about your category. I'll talk about Colgate. They say that it tightens your gums. Okay, and it strengthens your gum. And would they put a campaign on a show which has a weak protagonist or an antagonist, a protagonist, a weak protagonist? Does it make sense to align with that program without it emulating the values that a Colgate gives, which tightens your gums?
Yeah. So
do you ever reject a program and say?
So if a program is very negative, say for example, there's a program called Z Horror Show long back. I would not like to go with a women-oriented product on a program like Z Horror Show, because that I don't want to be rolling in that environment, but imagine that program is to do so well at one point of time.
Absolutely. And, there was Shkoye also, which was doing very well.
Yeah. So it's a tough call, I mean, rating versus, you want to be present in that environment. So what one should do as an advice I would like to give is that, one should try to not associate with the program in terms of sponsorship and not to do a in-film integration, in program integration. But then taking that program or not taking that program, it becomes a very difficult choice in terms of ratings if it's doing very well and etc. It's not an easy answer that we should outrightly reject it, or I should just keep it for some brands and on some occasions or something.
What about Vijay and Prachi?
Yeah, Anil, for us, it's slightly different. The program and the content really matters us a lot because in our case, the ticket value is very huge. It's not like FMCG, wherein the shelf life is very less time. Ours is like maybe 5 years, 10 years kind of an association with the product. So the brand ethos needs to be in place. It needs to be in sync with the program and the content. So we do evaluate the program and the content being aired on. So it's we tend to reject certain programs. We tend to reject certain partnerships. It's based on the content being played on.
Okay, Prachi.
So ad placement is an imperative thing for us in OTC space. I mean, as I said, loyalties are very, very high. For me, a consumer you will not go out and replace your brand of over-the-counter drug or over-the-counter
Can you name some of them? Can you name some of the OTC drugs that you all do advertise on television, and so that it becomes easier for the audience to relate to what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. See, Anil, I don't handle India market. I handle markets outside of India. So there are brands like nasal sprays, for example, Nazivi is there. Or say, for example, there is a nice gel, which is a topical application, pain application. So when you're placing such advertisements, when you're placing such brand advertisements, ad placements become very, very high. And loyalties don't change very fast. I mean, in certain markets, loyalties will be as high as 95%. I mean, in India market, OTC drugs royalties are as high as 75-80%. You don't replace your brands very easily. So for me, ad placements become very, very imperative. I mean, I'm forget about whether it is in sync or not, or those are all higher level of questions. My basic question starts on whether the brand is being able to make an impact or not, whether it is connected to my digital plans or not, whether this consumer is going to see it getting reiterated time and again, or the frequency of touching this consumer, it's at least 3+ or 4+, and not only on TV, it's across all medium. So for me, those questions are very, very high on table. So it's very different from whatever I have tried in a mass space which I have worked in. This space calls for extremely high trust building and loyalty. Hence, it's imperative for me to make sure that my ad placement is absolutely as crisp and as clear as possible. And I mentioned it's not only singularly seen, it's seen across medium. The second point is, are we going to be this non-happy brand, non-happy space or pharma company space where OTC is being driven? I think a lot of it is being changing now. We as an industry are trying to move towards creating a lot of warm boil, and definitely that's something most of us are acknowledging, that you don't reach out to patients, you reach out to consumers. You reach out to people before they start falling sick. I mean, before they start seeking solutions for their pain. And hey, it's a grudge buying. I mean, you don't wake up in the morning and say that, okay, aaj mujhe biscuit kharidna hai and aaj dawai bhi kharidni hai. So this is a grudge buying. This is a requirement buying. So you have to be on the top of the mind recall all the time. So whenever you or I fall sick, I definitely know that, okay, this is the brand that I have to go to. So these are very placement areas, and I really look for a lot of sync from a consumer point of view before I place my ad.
Yeah, because I remember Vicks VapoRub and Vicks, those are P&G brands. In those days, it used to be Richardson Hindustan in the early days when I was watching them on television. I mean, they really built trust, a lot of trust, and they became the first go-to brand. But now companies like Dabur have come in, they've disrupted that marketplace. They also have their rubs and all that.
Kudos, yeah, absolutely. Kudos to them. I mean, I really look up to Dabur in India market. They have done a fantastic job in this segment.
Rajiv, you just got some compliments from Prachi. So, how did you do disrupting the rub place, the rub marketplace, the inhaler space?
So long way to go there. I mean, the market is huge, and that's something, if you do right things in this market, you could take a huge share. But the loyalty factor in these products is very, very high. Very difficult to move a person from a Tiger balm to say any other balm, like that. So it takes a while to build brands in this sphere. And also what happens is that the size of category is very small. So there's always a challenge of how much money you want to spend or how much money you're willing to spend to build a brand in a category like this. As compared to, say, suppose if you look at a toothpaste kind of category, which is like 11,000 crore category, a balm category would be, say, a couple of 100 crore category. So
that's it. I thought it was larger, the balms and the Vicks.
So specifically balm category, I don't know the number right now. I can check the number, but it is not as big as toothpaste. Toothpaste, hair oils, shampoos, these are like in excess of 10,000 crores, and getting a market share in that 10%, 15% market share in these categories is a huge challenge, and much more joyfully, because you get business also which is in 1,000 crore.
But also the fact is we've got so many non-converts to be converted, especially in bikes, especially in toothpaste. They're still using the datun in many places. That has not been replaced as yet. So television can reach out to those people to convert them, as well as people may not be knowing about Vicks in the interiors. So you have a free-to-air broadcast which can work in that, FTA channel which can work in your favor in that. People may not be riding bikes in small villages. So and what has happened in recent past is that the toothpaste penetration in the country has become very, very big, very, very huge. Now it's like in excess of 92%. Right? Okay, but you still have 8% more.
And it's like massive market now, and growing very fast because the entry point in toothpaste categories become very easy now. It's like everybody has introduced 10 rupee packs which last for as much as a month. So at that price point, the penetration in this category has become very huge. So shampoos, toothpaste, these categories, the penetration has become massive now. So there are very few people with Datun left now anymore. People use it in addition to using the toothpaste now. But yes, when I started working many years back, I remember that that's how the transition used to be, from Datun to tooth powder to toothpaste to gels to mouthwashes. Now people straight away enter with toothpaste and remain there and probably experiment with between the brands they experiment.
Yeah, and I agree, Rajiv. I mean, such a thin gross margin product, to be able to work on those thin gross margins, and you guys have done a fantastic job on Dabur Lal toothpaste also. I mean, taking that market from Colgate must not have been easy. I have failed consistently in that part.
Yeah. So in fact,
compliments to you, boss.
Thank you so much.
I mean,
in fact, it has become a leader in a lot of markets. Like all the Eastern Coast, it's become number one brand is beaten Colgate, and all India level also we are growing pretty well. And in times to come, we are giving. I mean, one has to take share from the leader, right? So that's what one has been trying to do in every market possible.
One is share from leader and expand also. You said you've already expanded the market anyway, but I still feel that when I go into small budget, I'll still see people using tooth powder. I still see people using Datuns also. I still see that as recently as last year. So you said it's 8% of the market is a non-convert, but how much more would be tooth powder? And give us a case. How did you go about building Dabur Lal Manjan? How much television did you use? How much was it trade incentives? How much was it? What was it all about?
Mostly television.
Okay.
This brand has mostly been built on television, and we have not been able to play the SOV game, which a lot of other companies also do. Like a lot of multinationals, when they launch the products, they spend 100 crores in the first year, which we have not done. And because it's very difficult to get share in this market. And just by burning money, you don't get share in this market. It's as simple as that. The product has to appeal to people, and it is gradually you have to build the product. And if you look at this category, I mean, Ayurvedic toothpaste category, this is almost in the range of about 20% of the total toothpaste market is with Ayurvedic toothpaste, between Dabur and other products. And all this has happened in the last 5 years. This whole market has changed in the last 5 years because effort from our side, apart from other companies as well, who have gone to educate customers, etc.
So what did you use? Fiction, non-fiction? Sorry, go ahead. After that, you answer fiction, non-fiction. How did you balance? Continue what you were saying and also answer that.
So apart from television, one has done a lot of ground activation and a lot of trials. So we have done lots of sampling over last 10 years, where we have gone to schools and we have given a free toothpaste to kids. And when the kid goes home with the toothpaste and they like it, they go out in the market and buy it. So sampling has been a huge thing for red toothpaste over the years.
And in television,
that's worked pretty well for us.
And in television, was it starting both fiction, non-fiction, or was it more towards non-fiction?
So fiction first, non-fiction second. But non-fiction looks very big because of its promotion, because the programs are promoted so well. So a non-fiction program doesn't get non-fiction program gets promoted much more than a fiction. So that's why. I mean, you see it more. However, in terms of share of spends, more is towards the regular series rather than those one-off events and weekend properties.
Yeah, Vijay, over to you. Any cases you can show up, where you?
Yeah, so Rajiv has spoken about a case which is completely built on GCs. I'll talk to you about a case wherein we have built a brand which is only on a niche sports channel. Like we have a brand called R15, which is a 150cc motorcycle, wherein the price tag is 1.8 lakhs. And
wow.
we never used GCs. For that matter, we never used any other genre. We just kind of hopped on one niche sports, which is MotoGP, which is racing.
Sure.
That is our brand DNA also. Racing is in our blood. So we kind of use that since last 3-4 years. And I must say that from a level of 2,000 to 3,000 units a month, we have reached to a level of 5,000 units a month, wherein we didn't thought of any other genre. We just banked on this genre itself. Only niche sports, MotoGP. that is racing. So that is one of the classical examples in automobile, wherein we have only spent on this particular genre.
And the programming was it live MotoGP or was it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, live MotoGP, and then there are repeats also. I mean, you kind of bundle the deals with Eurosports. That is one example what I can quote from our industry.
Okay, nothing with GEC where you use GEC.
Nothing much.
Sorry.
Nothing much. Though I've used non-fiction for a couple of brands. We had a 5-year-long association with Miss Diva Universe, wherein it was shown off a couple of networks. So it was a long association. Before the product was launched, it was for Yamaha Facino scooter. Before the product was launched, we embedded this 1 year before in the program itself. We called it Yamaha Facino Miss Diva Universe. So that is one of the classical examples also. When it comes to such integrations with non-fiction, longevity is the key, and what matters is your patience. You can't have such a big ticket integration for a year, or for that matter 6 months. You need to have consistency. So we built this brand for around 5 years with this particular platform, and it did well for us also.
Okay, and why did you choose it?
Well, it was one fashion, and our product itself was the fashionable scooter. So it was a perfect marriage of both the brands. So that's the reason we chose.
Okay, Prachi.
Agree. I mean, I'm going to take example of my previous brand here and say that how we actually worked. As I said, I have huge respect for niche channels. So how we built up our brand, since we wanted the TG to be reached out, and we by the time. By around the 8th or 9th year of our existence, we knew that we are a young brand. We are a brand whose CLTV is going to be, I mean, the lifetime value of the consumer is not going to be more than 2-3 years. Once they find their fashion sense, they are going to move beyond us. So what we did was we consistently and consciously moved from GCs to the niche channels and started moving a lot of our conversations to other platforms as well. However, we stuck to big ticket items. We stuck to IPL. Consistently. We stuck to Miss India for 7 years, and we were the title sponsors. We stuck to KBCs. We stuck to Indian Idols. Now, what these non-fiction shows and platforms gave us was a huge number of eyeballs. I mean, at one point of time, for when we're trying to break away from an umbrella brand and create a niche for ourselves, despite being a multi-thousand crore brand, we definitely knew that for us to be able to stand up and say that, okay, we are this brand, get us noticed, and the walk-ins has to happen to the stores. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't get store footfall, you know where we're not in the world we were 5 years back. So that was definitely our ask, and a lot of CTA used to happen on television itself on these items, and high decibel programs like Miss India's, and when you're a title sponsor, you are present throughout the year. I mean, once you are having first round of conversation, when you're having the state level selections, when you're having national level selection, and also 30 days of 30 days of decibel of being there live on all the mediums, saying that, okay, we're going live in the next 30 days. So these are items, and I understand what Vijay is saying. If you're not there consistently, if you're in and out of such big ticket items, then it has absolutely no value. You basically created an image, but your recall fades very fast. So you have to consistently there. So you have to have the might to hold on to such a huge ticket item and build your brand. However, I think, as I said, the mix on ground or on TV, on in situ in TV was changing a lot for me at that point. And insistently, I actually look forward to change it, because to get the right kind of conversations going with the right kind of consumers that we're trying to reach out, we're very clear that this is where we want it to be.
Thank you. So in terms of fiction versus non-fiction, which gives you better flexibility in terms of your brand? What gives you, because the storylines in fiction are limited. Can you tinker around if you're putting in some big money? Whoever wants to take this up.
Yeah, let me add here, Anil. As far as non-fiction is concerned, the chances of your integration becomes much possible, and you can align your brand message product placements and all. And as far as GC is concerned, it's just plain Jane your spot buying. So yeah,
basically RODPs.
it is.
Basically.
Yeah, it is a clear choice. Though some of the brands have tried in the program placement, like I remember some of the telecom brands using idea use while calling and all. Some of the phone brands have done it beautifully, but it's just for one or couple of seconds. But when it comes to non-fiction shows like Big Boss, shows like your Roadies or Khatron Ke Khiladi, so there you have a chance to integrate your brand, and you can have a long-term association. So
yeah, but you also have initiatives like first ad in at the break, first ad, you have those options also coming in.
Yeah, so
yeah.
that is something which you get, I mean, that becomes a part of how you have done a deal. So you take a sponsorship, so that's just a sweetening of the deal, right? I mean, it's not it's definitely a value. I mean, you get a better rating, etc. But apart from that, you don't get into the show as such. I mean, getting into the show that's something you get with non-fiction primarily. On fiction also you get it, but it's like a lot of struggle. Your brand has to fit into the story, and then suddenly you can't get a female protagonist getting a bottle of amla hair oil in her hand, and start doing chumpy, on his own. I mean, because it has to go to the storyline, right? It's very difficult to get somebody to use red toothpaste in the show. I mean, it's very, very tough. However, in fiction shows, they're like very, very casual kind of shows, right? So you can very easily fit the product in the show. You can do a plug on the show.
Yeah, I can't forget the KBC ICICI Bank check, which you can never forget that.
That is a very good example. Very good, very well done. And even with Roadies, for example, Roadies stays in your head forever. And like Vijay mentioned about the MotoGP, there can't be a better association with a motorcycle or say an automobile product with a show like that. If you want to sell automobile product, you'll have to go to a show like this. I mean, if I have to sell my medicines, I'll go to a show which talks about medicine. So there's a direct connect. So it can't be anything better like that. And all the enthusiasts are there on the show. So one has to look at the brand synergies. That's very, very important. Apart from
that's different from what you said earlier. You said earlier you look for ratings, and now you're looking for brand synergies, which is good.
You're specifically talking about the MotoGP and the motorcycle brand.
You're talking about
that kind of example. However, as far as I'm concerned, FMCG brand is concerned, I would first look at the ratings and then go for the show, etc. But specific. So if I get a program which talks about medicine and basically talks about some Ayurvedic treatments, etc., that kind of a thing, well, I would definitely look at it, because there is a larger synergy with the kind of business we are in.
Okay, what are the challenges are you facing in terms of storylines? Is television evolving like OTT has been evolving? Are you all finding some stagnancy? Are you all finding fiction, non-fiction? What would you like to see different on GECs? Who wants to begin?
I think room for scope for improvement is really less as far as GECs is concerned. They have a set of programs which is working well over decades. I have a list in front of me of the programs which are doing well over ages, and they are continuing with that. I don't see they changing their lineup in coming time, especially all the networks what we have spoken about, be it V Star, be it VZ. It's all that after 5 years, they come up with something old in the new bottle and they're selling it. I don't see it evolving.
Same here, likewise. And I'm going to pick it up and say that this is not evolving across the globe. I am seeing most of my markets also. I mean, in some of the markets, I think I'm proud that I sit in India and say that, okay, OTT penetration has been higher than some of the really forward-looking developed countries also, where OTT penetration looks like really minuscule. And I don't see the programs evolving any further. And incidentally, they do very well in numbers. So you keep on putting your money in those programs time and again.
Yeah, so but HBO has innovated on the programming side over the years, and it continues to evolve. HBO itself.
Yeah,
but HBO is a paid service.
But the channel itself, we're talking about GCs and fiction.
That's channel entertainment, HBO.
Yeah, so I'm just talking about typical Saas Bahu.
That hasn't evolved,
right? So
Rajiv, your perspective?
So things like Ye Rishta Kya Kehlata Hai, for example, if were to refer to that program, it's been there for almost 13 years now.
Yeah.
And they have still not figured out कि रिश्ता क्या कहलाता है.
Because it's Rishta.
So when people are watching it, like it's still getting about 1.6, 1.7 ratings, so what does the channel do? They'll continue with the same program. I mean, this you certainly can't.
But are you okay associating with these long-running programs also? Or would you like to go with cutting-edge new programs which are getting new messaging? Though, Star started the entire strategy of improvement of women's lifestyles, whereas Z in your mind would be more heartland-driven programming, if I'm correct. And colors would be...
In fact, Star last year, they transformed their entire mix, So these programs used to be on the top, but, last 1 year, they have launched several new programs like Anupama, like...
which is a rockstar program.
Etc. Yeah. So these programs have done phenomenally well, and they're like doing excess of 2.5 to 3 ratings, and, they're taking a lead in this sphere. And another thing which one has seen across markets is that there are programs which do well across markets. Like, for example, on Vijay TV, there's a #1 show called Pandian Store, right? The same Pandya Store comes on Star Plus, which is at 7:30 p.m. It comes on Star Plus, and I think it's there in some other markets as well. Similarly, like Star's #1 program, Star Jalsa, which they are launching at 7:30 p.m. on Star Plus now in Hindi language, and with fresh set of protagonists, etc. So that also keeps happening. They go across markets and.
So do you buy across markets or do you buy
across markets? Because these programs do well across markets, like
all of y'all.
Like Z, for example, Z Saregama, it does well across all markets. Like Big Boss has this traction across all markets, So you buy it across markets, a proven formula. Then coming to the quality of programming, I just wanted to comment one thing here. Have you? Any of you have watched the Korean serials, K-drama?
Yes, definitely.
You do, right? So if you look at the K-drama is also very similar to, their stories are quite similar to our stories, #1. The only difference being that, their stories are usually 16 episodes or something like that. And they finish and end the stories, which doesn't happen in Indian market. We keep continuing and we keep dragging the stories for 13, 14 years, etc. and still getting good numbers. One has to learn from markets like those, where I think our values, our cultures are similar in some way because the family values and the kind of stories they create. We also create similar kind of stories. A fresh content ideas could come from there, but we still have a long way to go because we are stagnating in the kind of content we give out to people right now. Because a lot of people have lost out from the GCs and have moved away to something else, like OTT or something.
Yeah, and Anil, I think it will continue in future as well because we know still majority of the households are single TV. So whosoever has the control on remote, so these soap operas, your Saas Bahu will continue to thrive. So, and I don't see them ending in near future. I can tell you 10 number of programs wherein they were not able to culminate their shows. They were not able to culminate the serials. And at the end, they had to finish in a hurry. So it's going to continue, as Rajiv said, that it's easy for us to replicate the success stories, to take them across the regional markets and national markets. So it becomes easier for us also to do that.
Okay, there's another thing which we've seen a trend. Channels are pulling off shows which aren't working. Are you open to partnering with those shows initially at launch, or would you do it when they become successful? All of you, whether it's fiction or non-fiction.
It depends on what kind of budgets you have, whether you're ready to experiment, right? Suppose I'll rather partner with a channel which is coming up new, wherein you have more branding opportunities rather than a program which is coming new.
Okay, so you'd rather go with the channel, but yeah, Prachi.
I did very actively with a few channels. We actually came up new and I've partnered with them right from the beginning. Some take up, some don't take up, but yeah, it's an experiment which is definitely allowed if your budget allows it.
No, I'm not talking about channels. I'm talking about programs, new programs. What they do is they pull off programs now within 3 months, 4 months.
So
Yeah.
So in the current circumstances, I don't want to do that in my current industry. I would not do that, jump onto it immediately because
you'll wait for it to get the ratings.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I'll wait
Rajiv,
for
what
the
about you?
for me to
Would you wait for it to get the ratings, or would you come on early?
So some channels have very proven success story, with new programming, and when they put a program on air, it's like very well thought through, and probably they have seen success in some other markets. So for those kind of programs, yes, one should experiment, and I would definitely experiment with that kind of program. However, there's always a challenge whether the ratings will come or not. So one has to have a very tight deal, that, and one should have an exit clause built into the deal that, if the program doesn't do well, I should be able to exit. But it's, that's the good part about these new programs is that if you get to take the sponsorship of that program, you get to ride on the promotions which the channel is willing to do for that program, and that helps the brand. And if the program picks up, you also get benefited. But one has to think through this. One has to look at the option very carefully and then take a decision. You can't, like, for example, go to a channel which is not doing too well, and this suddenly comes and says that I'm going to put a lot of money behind this program. So that may or may not work. But with the proven channels and some which has seen some success story, some level of success, I think it's a safe bet, I would say.
Okay. Anyway, I think we've spoken a lot. Any other points we've missed out around this? But if you all would like to elaborate on them. Any points that we missed out on using fiction, non-fiction?
I think your primary question was whether should you spin behind fiction or non-fiction. I think my answer would be that so we do a very balanced approach. Most of the non-fiction shows they happen on the weekend. So if you have very clear-cut week a day and weekend strategy, then you can go for that. Another thing is that non-fiction gives you a fresh set of eyes, fresh set of viewers. So if you're looking at an incremental reach, fresh set of audiences, then like shows on Sony, shows on the weekends on all other GCs, I think they make a lot of sense. So hence, to get incremental audiences, etc., one should definitely look at non-fiction in addition to the fiction. That's I would say. For some, what may work is that just being a non-fiction might work. But for us, what works is that combination of both. That's what works.
Okay, Vijay.
Yeah, for us also, as I said, that it is depends on what kind of a product you're targeting and what kind of an objectives are there in place. So as if I have to target for masses, definitely I'll go for GCs, I'll go for fiction. But if I'm targeting for male audience, I'll go for non-fiction, and all my set of channels is defined. So it is a balanced approach depending on the objectives and what kind of budgets we have. So that is how do we go about media plans.
Yeah, Prachi, and then I'll just add one last comment, and then look for your roundup comments, and then we'll wrap up. Yeah, Prachi, your perspective.
No, I think I was going to echo the same sentiments. Okay. I mean, you definitely look at the peaks in which consumer viewing is happening, and then only engage with how your brand is syncing with it. That's it.
Yeah, we haven't talked about day part and prime time really, because day part, I don't know how strongly it's developed.
I have to jump out of this meeting now. I have one more meeting coming, so I blocked it to 3:30. Apologies if I have to jump out.
Sure.
But
I'll continue this with Rajiv. Thank you for being here, and Vijay, just asking about day part and prime time. Thank you very much, Prachi. It's been a pleasure having you. You're muted. You're muted, Rajiv.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah. Can you disconnect Dinal, please? I'm still continuing.
Sorry.
Yeah. So are you referring to
the afternoon slots and prime time?
Afternoon versus prime time. So so afternoons are usually repeats. So there was one time when afternoon shows used to be the fresh content.
Yeah, but do you like that to happen a lot? Are people not watching?
So again, I mean, if it gives you good rating and gives you good value for money, then it makes sense. But what happened is that the cost of production of whether it's a primetime show or afternoon show is same, right? So for a channel, there's no merit in putting a fresh content in the afternoon to get the same audiences or to reach out to the same people. So I think they have gradually done away with this, and what they do is that they take one of their successes, which is a success in the prime time, and they keep repeating that show over and over again in the afternoon, right? And fortunately, unfortunately, that gives you rating also. So So if it's getting rating at a lesser cost and it is
It
much more
makes sense. Yeah.
cost effective than prime time, then one has to look at that audience as well, and because that's an incremental audience, that is, and then go for it. So that's how, I mean, cost is a big factor in that. So if it comes at the same cost as prime time, then obviously no, it has to be very, very cheap and should help give you incremental audiences.
And your deals, your block deals are continuing with channels. That means your portion, let's say, 30 crores to a network, that this is what you're going to spend, and then you're according to your media agency that plans. This is for both you and Vijay. Are those block deals continuing with channels, with like a Z network or with a Star? You'll commit so much spends on them.
Well, Anil, times are different these days, right? We don't know what's up the sleeve. So yes, there used to be time when we used to do annual deals with all the big networks, but currently it's not the case. We go on piecemeal kind of deals. So I'm sure Rajiv will have a different perspective, but from our side, it's different. We don't do any long-term deals looking into the current market scenario.
Okay, Rajiv.
So unlike Vijay, I'm in a repeat order business, so my business continues through the year, and I have to go and sell the same product to the same consumer again and again throughout the year. So same thing happens with me with TV channels also. So so for us, we have deals with almost every channel, which is there, which makes for us. So we have long-term deals with most of the networks for the longest time, and they are deals which have continued for decades and decades altogether.
I agree.
And then
with the top networks, even the smaller channels, we have had deals for the longest time, decades, I would say, that we work with.
I'll add a point here when Anil said the channels are pulling off the program. So don't worry, Anil, sales team is going to make good to Rajiv if they pull off the program. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, and so last point is how important is interactivity to television for your. I remember I've talked about this product called Megaphone TV, which is going to come on Z News very soon, which allows to get consumers to interact live with polls, opinions, etc., and contests live online and get their names on television live. How important is that interactivity as compared to SMS voting, as compared to other forms of interactivity? This is live interactivity, no latency.
So if I get to interact through the channel about my product, and I get to gain something out of that.
Data, you'll get data, you'll get understanding of, you'll have.
If I get some first party data and I get to get some information about the consumer and get a branding on the TV channel, yes, I'm in for it. But if it's just a blind spot that
no, it's not a spot. You can actually get people to you can get them to fulfill orders. For instance, run a campaign, and somebody then uses the QR code, puts his phone out there, gets into that. He actually gives you his data. So that's happening a lot in the international markets.
So here, first party data becomes very important. So if I'm getting first party data and I'm getting to know about the consumer, so that I can retarget him.
Yeah. So be in touch with the news. They're starting this soon. They'll be
starting. That's something will be of huge importance to us, because you're reaching out to masses, you're reaching out, and you're getting a data as well. So
absolutely.
Of course,
this is also to Vijay. Yeah. This is also to Vijay. Z News is going to be starting.
Anil, I think that is one factor which is currently missing with TV, the interactivity with the audience. So if it really comes up, definitely we'll look forward to it, because that's one area to explore wherein you can get in direct touch with your audience for inviting them to our showrooms for the test ride or getting in first-hand experience.
Yeah, this has been used very effectively by Buick in the US. They take you to the nearest showroom when you interact.
Yeah, I saw a couple of examples. I mean, when we last interacted, I've seen those case studies also.
So that's coming in India now. Z has taken it on. Z News.
Yeah, it looks fabulous also, and wherein we'll be able to at least show ROI on the television most efficiently as well. If we are able to drive footfalls to the showrooms for the test rides, wherein people can touch and feel the product, I mean, definitely yes.
Okay, last words. We've spoken a lot. Last words around fiction, non-fiction, GCs, advertising, etc., and then we'll wrap it up.
It's going to continue, Anil. Both will survive, considering, as I said, the dimensions of India. Fiction is going to be here, non-fiction is going to be here. It is for you to choose what are your brand objectives and what kind of space you are. Whether are you targeting to the mass audience or niche audience? What is the PLC of your product and what phase you are? it depends on that. But everything is going to stay here for long, and business is going to thrive. That's my last take.
Yeah, Rajiv?
Yeah, so non-fiction comes at a cost. It's much more expensive than a fiction book. And so that worries me a lot, that because that cost has been going up, and because channels also spending much more behind the non-fiction shows. Unfortunately, it doesn't do as well in terms of ratings. So costs are high, ratings are less. So that's one pain point for all the advertisers. I think that if that gets sorted out through viewership ratings, I think that's the way this non-fiction part will grow. Otherwise, it will keep getting smaller, and people would not like to spend money behind something which doesn't give you very good rating. And you would have seen that over the years, Star Plus has been doing less and less non-fiction, because they don't see an ROI for non-fiction shows, and obviously they're not getting paid for the kind of money they are investing behind those non-fictions. So that's the thing. So the quality of content in non-fiction is not as good as we would want it to be, probably, because of which I think it has been going down for some channels. Some channels are still thriving on it, but again, a very important thing to get a fresh content and a fresh ideas in that.
Thank you very much, all of you. I think it's been a very enriching session for all of us. Thank you very much. I hope you all had some insights which came in from each other. I learned a lot from you all. Thank you. And thank you to the audiences. Thank you to the team. Thank you to the speakers. And it's been always great interacting with you guys. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Anil. Thanks, Rajiv.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for this exciting exchange. And I'm sure all our audiences learned a lot from you guys, as Anil sir said. Well, that brings us to the end of the TV Brand Fest 2021 Day 3. And once again, I'd like to thank our co-powered by partner, Disney Star TV Network. The event is produced and executed by ITV 2.0 Productions. On behalf of IndianTelevision.com Group, I would like to thank all the speakers and viewers for taking out your time to join us today. We hope you had a fruitful time. Do share your feedback with us. Use the hashtag TV Brand Fest 2021 in your post and tag our official handles. We can be found at ITV News on Twitter and Facebook, and IndianTelevision.com on Instagram and LinkedIn. We start the TV Brand Fest 2021 Day 4 sessions tomorrow from 2:30 p.m. onwards on Advertising on News. We look forward to you hosting tomorrow at 2:30. Have a nice evening. Thank you.